I am a woman.
I am a woman.
I am a woman.
A single voice.
Many have doubted what I'm capable of.
But I saw a problem in my community.
I saw the women of my country being left behind.
The women in Kuwait did not have political rights.
Women were getting raped and they were not getting any justice.
I made a choice.
I made a choice.
I made a choice.
To take action.
I've been able to get justice for child abuse victims.
I help women and their families earn a living where they live.
I've helped more than 27,000 women into business.
I've mentored women so that they're now part of the decision-making process.
We campaigned to obtain full political rights.
We've been able to...
I made a film.
We established the Bible of Life, the Iraqi
I am a single voice.
I am a single voice.
I am a single voice.
And I will be heard.
There we go. Hello, everyone. Hello, it's so wonderful to be back here with all of you in Guatemala. I'm Elise Nelson. I'm president and CEO of an organization called Vital Voices. Vital Voices was created 25 years ago on a simple but yet powerful idea that no country in the world could move forward, could advance, could compete in a global marketplace if half the population, women and girls, were left behind. We are venture catalysts at Vital Voices. We find leaders like the ones that you just heard from, and we invest in them through training, mentoring, a network of their peers, visibility and credibility, and more importantly than ever, crisis response and urgent assistance. Because one of the things that we are seeing around the world, it is becoming more difficult and more dangerous to be a woman leader in the world today. The women that we support, the women that you just saw on the screen, they're not household names. They are women who are not chasing titles or positions. They want answers. They want answers to the problems that affect their kids, their families, and the next generation. These are the vital voices of our time. From Afghanistan to Ukraine, Sudan to Guatemala to the United States, and every single country in between. I can tell you because I have traveled there, and I have seen women leading a new model of leadership, and women finding a way forward. After 26 years of doing this work, we have supported and worked with women all over this region and across 185 countries around the globe. We have supported more than 20,000 of these women leaders with our Vital Voices investment model. But most importantly, we don't go into communities and say, here are the problems and we've got the solutions from outside. No. What we do is we find the solution leaders. We invest in them and their ideas. Because who better to change culture, change behavior, change laws than the people who are closest to them, who understand them the most? One of the things that we began to see is across all these different regions and countries and generations, all of these women who were impacting the lives of millions of people, we saw that across all their differences, there were these 5 common practices. There was something that connected a graffiti artist in Brazil with a peace activist in Northern Ireland. It was the distinct way in which they practiced leadership. And quite frankly, none of these women saw themselves as leaders. They were just those who got up every day and said, I want to do the right thing. I'm not a leader. I don't have the title, the position, the people reporting to me. I'm not a leader. But they were. They were doing the right thing, stepping up, using whatever they had from wherever they were. So over 26 years, we began to see this model repeat and repeat and repeat. And that is what I am here to talk to you about today, is to share this model, to actually take you on a journey with me around the world, to introduce you to some of the women leaders who taught us this model, who have shown us the way, and who to a T did not believe that they were leaders because they saw another model of leadership. Now, I know there are a lot of men here today, and thank you for being here as part of this discussion. Because just as we learn these lessons in leadership from women, they are so relevant for everyone. Because let's face it, our world is changing. If it wasn't the pandemic, the crises, or climate around the world, our world is changing. Do you know that right here in Guatemala, I learned 15 years ago what the Mayans believe. Many of you, I'm sure, know this. But the Mayans believed that 2012 was actually not going to be the end of the world, as some people were predicting, but a shift, an incredible seismic shift in the planet. A shift from the masculine energy that has ruled the world for 5,200 and some years to the feminine energy. Now, this is not about men and women, it is about energy. We know that women are drivers of economic opportunity around the world. In fact, The Economist magazine said back in 2006, more than 15 years ago, that forget India, forget China, forget the internet, women will be what drives economic growth and opportunity around the world. But guess what? What I am about to tell you about, we believe, is more powerful than the $28 trillion that the world would have to gain if women were brought up to the same level of men in terms of economic development. Women are not just an economic force. Women are not just another number in society to be tapped. We are, sure, but what's even greater, what's even more powerful, that I have seen over my more than 2 decades traveling the globe and working with women leaders, is that they are a leadership force. So I want to introduce you to this model, the Vital Voices leadership model, or we call it a journey. Because quite frankly, wherever you are in the world, leadership's never that final destination, right? It's the constant practicing and becoming better. One of the things that researchers have found sets women apart as leaders is no matter how high they climb in terms of title or position or impact, they never stop asking for feedback. They never stop having their ear to the ground. So the first practice that we learned was this idea of a driving force or a sense of mission. Secondly, we found that women have deep roots in the communities that they serve. And I don't just mean in their community, I mean in their organization, among the people that they're leading. They have their ear, as I said, to the ground. They have this ability to connect across lines that divide. They have bold ideas and they're not afraid to put those bold ideas into action. And finally, again and again, we found across all these differences that women couldn't hold resources or power or opportunity to themselves. They had to pay it back. They had this deep resolve to pay it forward. Amanda Gorman is one of those who taught us about this first lesson in leadership, the very first practice. The practice of a driving force or sense of mission. Now, some of you may remember her. She stood on the podium with the United States President, Biden, and the Vice President, Kamala Harris, and she recited her poem. She was in her early 20s, and she made history. She spoke for a nation that, quite frankly, was on its knees, the United States, trying to come back after this terrible pandemic, as the world was as well. But here's what's so powerful about Amanda's story. She didn't start off that way. As most great leaders She had tragedy. She had challenges. She had adversity. She grew up with a speech impediment. She grew up being bullied. In fact, she couldn't say the letter R. Do you know how many words have the letter R in the English language? A lot. So she would sit on the bench at school when she was growing up, and in her notebook, she would figure out what words she could say, so she wouldn't have to say that word and that word and that word that start with R. And she realized her gift for words, and she started reading, and she immersed herself in Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, and she started writing poetry. She worked and she worked and she coached herself and she got a coach and she started speaking and performing her poetry. And she began to realize that her voice was her superpower. This is Amanda Gorman, and this is the new Vital Voices Global Embassy for Women Leaders. I am the daughter of Black writers who descended from freedom fighters, who broke the chains, who changed the world. They call me. That is her true north. What we have found is that all great leaders rise to leadership because of experience. Not because they decide one day, well, I'd like some power, then I can use it. No. They were faced with a challenge. They saw a wrong in their community. Like the women in the film, they saw a wrong in their community and they stepped up to right it. That's what leadership is about. That is the kind of leaders that we need. Ariela is from El Salvador, and she grew up during the Civil War. And guerrillas actually kidnapped her brother, and her brother was held underground for more than a year. He was blindfolded, he was barely fed, he was bathed. When he returned, life was not the same for her family. What was the crime? Why was he kidnapped as such a young boy? She couldn't understand why he was kidnapped and she was not. Why was she saved? But why did this happen to their family? Why? And then she began to realize, rather than asking why, she needed to decide what she could do about it. She went to school in the United States. She started in the fashion industry. But this question, not just why, but what can I do about it? She returned to El Salvador and she saw that there were all these young men, promising young men who were caught up in the gang violence. Many of them either ended up in prison or dead. And she decided they, like her, had pain. They, when she would meet with them, would say, why? And she realized that across their differences, across their many differences of where they came from, she had come from a life of privilege. Her father had been instrumental in working for peace in the country, which is why her brother was kidnapped. But she realized that they could come together around this pain that they shared, and that this pain could be a source of power. And she started a company called Sequence, and they make these beautiful bracelets you see. She's now been on the runways in New York, and she has helped over 100 men to rebuild their lives. She has helped them to gain employment and community and self-esteem and pull themselves out of violent activities. She is just getting started, but she is creating a ripple of change from a place of putting ego aside, putting differences aside, and coming together to make that change. That laws themselves do not change culture. It is culture that changes culture. It is culture that changes culture. The final story that I want to share for you is the idea of the resolve to pay it forward. And it began right here in Guatemala. This is Maria Pacheco. She is here somewhere. I don't know where you are, Maria, but I know she's in this room. I met Maria Pacheco in 2006. She came to Washington, D.C. to participate in a Vital Voices program. She came, and I felt like she had her community on her back. She came and she told stories of women who had to choose which child to feed, had to choose whether to take a child to the hospital and pay that fee or to make sure that she could feed and take care of the other children. She wanted so desperately to connect these people with opportunity, with markets, their products connected to markets because they made these beautiful products. And she knew that she could do that, but she needed support. She needed support and inspiration. And she came back from that Vital Voices training, I think, more encouraged. She met her sisters from around the globe, and she realized that she was not alone. There were many women around the globe who were trying desperately to make change. And she saw that, okay, I have even more to do. Leadership is an opportunity, but it is also a huge responsibility. She came back, and here, exactly 15 years ago, right here in this city, she started a Vital Voices chapter for Guatemala. But she didn't stop there, because she said, I have been given so much. I have to give back. And that is what women do. When you invest in women leaders, and you support them, and you connect them, and you provide them with opportunities and finances and a network of their peers and visibility, they pay it forward. She talks about this feeling so deep inside her, saying, I have to give back. It can't just end with me. And sure enough, she expanded this network over the last 15 years across all of Central America. Hundreds of girls, thousands of women empowered, supported, making positive change, and yes, paying it forward. If I could leave you with one idea about these 5 practices, a resolve to pay it forward, obviously, is so critical. But we all must have a driving force. All of us have it. We do. It is in you. It is not somewhere outside. For too long, I think that women have been overlooked and undervalued for the very reason we need them most at this moment. We lead differently, and that difference is needed in our world today. And I believe that this is because whether it's the climate crisis, the economic crisis, health crisis, violence, we are the closest to the challenges, disproportionately affected by the problems, but that makes us so well positioned to be the solution. Just as the Mayans said that there would be a shift in 2012 from the masculine to the feminine, when I returned after 2012, I said, I don't see the shift. And they reminded me, the cracks are starting. Each of us are the cracks. We are here because we don't accept the way things are. Crisis compels us to think differently, to do differently, to be different. So let's be those cracks in the system. Let's be those change agents to make our world a better place. Thank you so much.